Here we are. Thank you all so much for expressing your interest, first of all, and tuning into today's webinar, where we're going to discuss residency in Spain and what the Brexit deadline of December 31st means for those moving to Spain or those already in Spain who have yet to apply for residency. It's so lovely to be able to talk to you all from the comfort of your own homes. It's the very first time that we at Kyero have hosted something like this, and we're so grateful that you're spending your afternoon with us. We're going to start bang on time. There are well over 50 people on this call, and I want to respect your time, I want to respect our guests' time, and we're going to be aiming to be finished by 4 p.m. UK time. We have so much to cover in that hour, so I will crack on. I want to look at this from the perspective of someone right at the beginning of the process with no prior knowledge of residency, but also the more in-depth questions as well for those already involved in the process or perhaps already living in Spain who might have some concerns and some worries. So my name is Beth Davison. I am the host of Kyero's Spanish Property Podcast, where we interview people who've recently purchased their home in Spain. Through each episode of that, we find out what's worked well about the process, what maybe didn't work so well, and what they would do differently if they were going to do it again. The aim of those conversations is always transparency, honesty, hearing from real life experiences of what it's like to move to Spain. And those are the themes that I absolutely want to bring to today's conversation as well. So I really do hope that you find this discussion useful. If you have to leave us before 4 o'clock, I know that sometimes unexpected challenges tend to crop up during this transitional working period, but don't worry, it's being recorded. A link will be emailed to you along with an information pack after we finish today. So there's nothing else to say except introduce my guest this afternoon. Lauren Rubio-Hughes of HN Lawyers is joining us from Alicante. But before you meet her, I would like to introduce Martin Dell, the co-founder of Kyero, who would like to say a quick hello.
Thanks, Beth. So I'm Martin Dell, and I co-founded Kyero in 2003 after moving to Spain with my wife and making every possible mistake when we bought our first property. You name it, we did it. Sometimes people see Kyero as an estate agent, but actually it's a place where you can find a lot of estate agents and their properties. And back in 2003, 17 years ago, that was a novelty. It was revolutionary, but not so much today. And that's one of the reasons we've begun this webinar series. We want to shape the next 17 years of Kyero with the help of your feedback and input. So aside from being immediately useful to you on the subjects of Brexit and residency, we hope that this webinar is the start of a longer and a much wider ranging conversation. So in a minute, I'll hand you over to Lauren. And when I do that, I'm just to forewarn you, I'm going to switch off my video so that you can concentrate on her conversation with Beth. And I'll jump back on towards the end as we're wrapping up. So Lauren is an international lawyer. Sorry, I've gone blank. She's here today because when lockdown happened, we just were inundated with requests about Brexit and questions about the deadline. And so we hope we can deal with those questions today. So Lauren, perhaps you could give us a quick intro into yourself and the practice of HN Lawyers.
Well, hello, Martin. Thank you for allowing us to be part in this webinar. It's a pleasure to be here. As you said, I'm a Spanish lawyer, registered as European lawyer with Alicante Bar Association. I'm specialized in international law, commercial law, property and immigration law. My business partner, Jesus Nieto, is also Spanish solicitor, specialized in criminal law, international law, immigration law and property law. We decided to create HN Lawyers, Houston Nieto Limited Company based in London, to be able to provide a better service for British citizens. As we discovered when Brexit came into place that British citizens were very concerned regarding their rights and obligations in Spain and what was going to happen with the near future. That is why we decided to open our main base in London to be able to advise our clients directly in their own country, in their own language. Even though our base is in London, we have offices in Glasgow, Malaga, Alicante, Madrid, and Tenerife. We practice all over Spain. And the idea that we have is to provide legal service to all our clients regarding any legal issue that they have in Spain. We provide advice not only regarding residency, NI applications, conveyancy or property law. We also provide advice regarding international family law, divorces, probates, litigation, money claim, mortgage settlements, European arrest orders, European enforcement orders, any legal issue that our citizens may have in Spain. If you are willing to see all of our services, please have a look at our website, HN Lawyers, that's HN Abogados, hnlawyers.co.uk, and you can check how we can help you.
Thank you so much, Lauren, for that introduction. And I'm so thrilled that you're here because I feel like safe pair of hands. This is what we need for this conversation. I should say that as soon as we asked people to register their interest in this topic, we were inundated with over 400 questions. More than 500 people have registered an interest, which just proves to me that this is a really important topic for so many people. At times it's a confusing topic. People have so many questions and there's not necessarily enough resources for people to go to find answers. So I'm not going to be able to include all 400 of those questions today, but we're going to touch on the main themes here. And with all of your experience in this field, Lauren, I know you're going to guide us through, and I'm so grateful. Thank you. And we'll touch on what you believe to be the most important issues here as well. Now, we want to avoid speculation. We want to avoid conjecture. So let's just begin with what we know to be true, and that is, as businesses and individuals, the deadline date for the UK's departure from the EU is December 31st of this year, which means applications for residency in Spain need to be completed by then as well, should you wish to apply as an EU resident. Now, we're going to touch on that difference a little bit more later on, but for now, let's just keep it simple. Lauren, can you give me a quick definition of what residency is and who needs to be applying for it?
Yes, well, being a resident in Spain means that you live more than half of the year in Spain. That is more than 183 days. It is not an option. If you live more than 183 days in Spain, you must register as a Spanish citizen and you must pay your taxes in Spain. That is precisely what residency is. There is another situation in which you must register as resident, and that is if your main incomes come directly or indirectly from Spain. The tax office will consider you also a Spanish resident, and you will have to communicate that to the Spanish tax office and pay your taxes in Spain.
Okay, so you could live outside of the country, but if you had your income coming in, whatever businesses that you have, if that is based in Spain and more than half of your income is coming from within Spain, you would also count as needing residency, is that correct?
The tax office can consider that your income is coming from Spain, and therefore they will consider you a tax resident and will want their fees paid.
Yeah, yeah, okay, no, that makes perfect sense. So do you have to have residency before you can move to Spain? Do you have to wait until you're in Spain if you're planning a permanent move? I'm just sort of trying to think at where in the process this application needs to come.
You don't need to be in Spain to apply for residency. You can start to apply for it from the UK. You will first need to apply for your NI number, and then you will have to submit a few forms and some documentation. It's not until the last part of the process that you have to come to Spain, but you can start it from the UK, that's no problem.
Okay, fantastic. And when you fill it in, does it incorporate any other EU countries? Because I know the EU is sort of one entity, or is it individual to Spain? Does it give you options elsewhere?
When you register your residency in Spain, what you will get is the EU Residency Card. That means that you have the same rights and obligations than any resident in Spain, than any Spanish citizen. With that document, you can enter any EU country and stay there for 90 days. Then if you decide to, if you decide to stay in that EU country, then you can decide to apply for residency, and it will be easier because you are already an EU resident.
And so that would actually count for past the point of December. If you'd made this application as an EU resident before Brexit happens, that would still help you as a stepping stone for later applications, is basically what you're saying.
Yes, if you are already an EU resident in Spain, that shouldn't change. Your status that you have acquired before Brexit comes into place, it shouldn't change after Brexit. So that will help you if you decide to change to another EU country.
Yeah, fantastic. And what about other benefits? Why else? I know obviously residency is mandatory, we've said that, but what other benefits are you going to get? Are you treated in exactly the same way as a Spanish citizen? How does it work?
Once you become a Spanish resident, you have the same rights and obligations as a Spanish citizen. Therefore, you will have the same benefits. You can access any employment, you can access benefits, and you will pay less tax than a non-resident. If you have a property in Spain, the taxes that you pay are lower if you are an EU resident than a non-EU resident. There are a few jobs that you will not be able to complete because they are just for Spanish citizens. Those jobs are a judge or prosecutor, but you can work in the county hall, you can have any other job.
Amazing. So you could, in theory, work for the government. Like there are a kind of broad spectrum that becomes open to you once you have residency.
Yes, of course, you can work for the government as an EU resident in Spain.
Amazing. And we've actually had quite a lot of questions about Spanish bank accounts, specific income thresholds that you might need to meet before you kind of qualify. Are there criteria that you have to meet before you can apply for residency?
If you're applying as an EU citizen, you do not have to provide your incomes and you do not have to provide your bank statements because you are already an EU citizen applying to become EU resident in Spain. If you are applying for a non-EU resident, then you do have to apply proof of incomes and bank statements to prove that you can maintain yourself and take care of yourself in Spain during all the time that you are waiting to get your residency. As a non-EU resident, you will have to wait to have your permanent residency for 5 years. So when the first 5 years that you have your residence expire, you will have to prove again after those 5 years that you comply with your requirements. That doesn't apply for EU residents.
Right, okay. So in the situation that we are in for the next 6 months, there is a lot less that you have to prove, like that, as in bureaucracy wise, there's a lot fewer forms, there are less things that they're going to ask for if you do the application process whilst we are still in the EU.
Yes, applying for EU residency in Spain is quite easy. The documents that they require are practically testimonial, so it's something to consider. If you are thinking in becoming a Spanish resident, it's easier if you apply for residency before December.
And so when it comes to this question of a Spanish bank account, is this something that do you have to have a Spanish bank account before you can get residency? Is it easy to set up a Spanish bank account?
You do have to have a Spanish bank account because you're going to pay your taxes from Spain, so you need a Spanish bank account for that. It's very easy to open a bank account. You can do it yourself in any bank branch that you consider that you want to work with, or you can do it with a solicitor, with power of attorney. We can open bank accounts for our clients. You can open a non-resident bank account and then switch to resident bank account once you are a resident. That's no problem.
Okay, that's helpful. And we should just say that this isn't synonymous with people wanting to buy property. I know the majority of people that I speak to on the podcast have already purchased property, but if you wanted to rent or your living situation was different, residency still applies, right?
Yes, of course. You don't need to own a property to become resident. You just need to live in Spain more than 183 days. You can apply for residency, rent a house, and then decide to purchase. That's no problem. Or just live out of rent. You don't need to be an owner.
Okay, fantastic. And just to touch on then the differences again between being inside and outside of the EU. We're not saying that past December it's impossible to apply for residency, but it does change how long that residency can last for, and obviously the process itself changes quite a lot.
Yes, the process for non-EU citizens it's tougher, it's longer, and you have to prove your incomes. It's not permanent, the residency that you obtain. First, they issue a temporary residency for 5 years that you will have to renew, and then if you meet the requirements, you will become a permanent resident.
Okay, but you are going to get checked on again in 5 years' time. Whereas if you applied now in the state that the UK currently is as part of the EU, that residency is indefinite.
Yes, well, that's what the law says. Once an EU resident applies for residency in Spain, that resident is permanent. This shouldn't change with Brexit, as the law already says that it's permanent. With non-EU applications, they will have to go over all the requirements again after 5 years.
Yeah, and I just think anything that makes the process more straightforward has got to be a help. It's already tough with all the forms to fill in. So assuming people do want to do it before December 31st, and that does kind of feel like a good idea for people, how long does this process take? What does it look like? Is it all sort of forms that you download from the internet and you fill in? How does it work, and how long generally does it take people to do?
Well, the bureaucracy in Spain is not easy and it's not helpful at all. So if you don't speak Spanish, it's going to be very difficult for you to complete the forms. You can download those forms from internet, and then you just have to pay them in Spanish, pay the taxes in a Spanish bank, and follow all the bureaucracy requirements. You can do it yourself. It's not impossible. If you like bureaucracy and you want to try and do it yourself and get along with the system, why not? If you have time and you're willing to experience Spanish bureaucracy, well done, go for it. If you don't have time for that, just request a professional service. Because it can be time consuming.
And I think the worry is that you make one single mistake and all of those forms are going to come back to you and you'll have to begin the process again. And actually our window of six months, less than 6 months now, it's not that long. And I personally would, I think, worry about making a mistake. Is it common that people come back to you saying, I tried myself, I made a mistake, can you help me?
Yes, it's quite common, yes. At this time, you must get it right from the beginning. If you apply and then it's rejected and you have to apply again, you may extend the deadline to apply as EU citizen.
Yeah, totally. And you mentioned actually already, but the other important piece of documentation that I often hear buyers mention in the podcast is the NIE. Now can you just explain, this is separate to residency, isn't it?
Yes, the NIE number is national identification number for foreigners. If you have to do any transaction in Spain, you need an NIE number. Even though you're not going to live in Spain, and you don't want to apply for residency, if you're going to inherit a property, you need the NIE number to accept that inheritance. If you want to renounce to a probate, you also need an NIE to fulfill the tax to renounce to that part of the inheritance for that share. Any tax movement application, any tax issue in Spain, you need an NIE number. The NIE number is not only a number that identifies you, that is you in Spain. The NIE number tells the government and the police who that person is in Spain, as they register in Spain with those details. Once you have the NIE number, then is when you apply for the residency.
And so that sounds like a really good sort of beginning step for anyone right at the beginning of the process. The NIE number is going to be your first stepping stone on this whole process. I think that's quite a useful thing to bear in mind. You mentioned getting professional assistance with all of these forms. And you said at the beginning the amount of things that you help with. It's not just solicitors people can get help from. Is that correct? You can go to gestors. We don't have those in the UK. So could you give a bit of an explanation on what they are?
Yeah, well, in Spain you have solicitors. We're all registered with our bar association. You can check our details online at the General Bar Association. You will find our name, surname, and our bar association number. My number is 7,444. If anyone wants to check, it's public information. We have in Spain what we call gestores. The gestores are mainly tax advisors or accountants. They normally provide service regarding taxes on residency applications, but they don't have the knowledge of the global knowledge that British citizens need when they purchase a property, when they apply for residency, when they sell a property. So you have to be very careful who you choose to advise you, because if you're not properly advised, if you sell your property and then you just leave Spain and your gestor hasn't advised you properly on how to fulfill the capital gain tax, then you're going to have problems with the Spanish tax revenue. And you will find a letter years after, 4 or 5 years after, in the UK claiming a lot of money for that tax that you didn't pay properly. So we always recommend to go to a solicitor that can provide a global service, a full service that British citizens need, not only someone that will go and apply for residency and forgets about any other issues that may be involved.
Yeah, and I think it's interesting how many people I've heard the story of. We went with a solicitor who turned out to not be legally registered and wasn't who they said they were. And actually, the thing to remember is that the internet is really your friend in that instance. You can look this up, it's public information. You can find out if the solicitor is who they say they are. We're actually going to provide some of those links in the information pack that's being sent out to people, because I think it's a really great tip to just make sure that you're going with the right person, because it's a relationship that you build, really, right? Like your clients, they're really trusting you.
Yeah, of course, you have to build a relationship. If I purchase a property in another country and I don't know anyone, I have to trust my solicitor. I want my solicitor to help me when I buy my property, to provide me a due diligence, to check that the property is okay, to help me to pay those taxes. Then I need my solicitor to help me to pay the yearly taxes that I have to pay in Spain. And if things go wrong and I need a divorce, I will go to the same solicitor to fight for that divorce. If things go even worse and I end up in a criminal case, I want to be able to go to my law firm, to my solicitor, and they have to provide the advice that I need, the proper advice from an international point of view, because British citizens that live in Spain, they are international clients. You don't only have issues in the country you live in. You can have issues in many other countries.
Yeah, absolutely. And so that brings me on to the question of costs associated with this. So does the residency application itself incur any fees? Presumably solicitors' fees are going to change depending on the solicitor you go with?
Yeah, solicitor fees, it depends in the law firm. You have to pay the fees for the NI and for the residency. There are law firms that are charging 30 euros for an NI application, but that is only to fulfill the forms and pay the tax. Then the client has to go by himself to do the interview with the police. On residency applications, it depends. I've checked law firms online, and some of them charge 300, others 500, others 1,000. It depends in the law firm and in each situation.
Yeah, but it just sounds like it's going to be quite a broad range, and that is totally dependent on how much they're going to help you through the process. Some will go with you, some won't, and it's just forms. And I think it's good to know the exact service that you're buying, and actually if it's cheaper, there'll be a reason that it's substantially cheaper. If it's 30 euros when it's meant to be 300.
Yeah, exactly. You have to check what service is included. Many solicitors don't even know how to draft an international power of attorney, so that service is not complete. Then you have to find an author in the UK that's going to provide the power of attorney, because your solicitor doesn't know how to do it. That is going to be time consuming for you also. So it's better to go to someone that's going to provide all the service that you need. It doesn't mean that you're going to pay more. It just means that you have to go with the right professional.
Yeah, absolutely. Amazing. Well, I think that is kind of all of the broader questions that I wanted to ask you, but I'm going to move on now to some specific questions that we had sent in from sort of individual situations, and then I'll summarize all the main points at the end. But I thought this one was a really interesting question, and we've touched on citizenship already, but residency doesn't affect your citizenship, right? You're still a British citizen. You're not a Spanish citizen. It's not dual citizenship. It's nothing like that. It's very separate, right?
Yes, of course. Residency just means residency. You live in Spain and you pay the taxes in Spain. You are still a British citizen, and you can't lose your citizenship because you live in another country. That's not one of the reasons to lose your citizenship. Being a resident in Spain only means that you are living in Spain. You can go back to the UK and become a UK resident at any moment.
Okay, fantastic. And I remember you mentioning to me on a previous chat that that's slightly different for children. Am I right in saying that? The citizenship issue changes when you're under 18?
Under 18, you can have dual citizenship. If you have, well, it depends in the agreements between the countries. Spain and the UK has an agreement for dual nationality. So the kids they can have both nationalities until they turn 18. Then you are meant to choose one, Spanish or British, one of your nationalities. That will be the one that you will use for the rest of your life. It's meant to be like that, but no one chooses at the moment.
Yeah. Okay, so this one is, would having residency in Spain affect anyone's ability to take their UK pension? And where would they pay taxes in that situation?
Wait, the thing is, residency means you pay taxes in the place that you live, in the country that you live. Therefore, if you are a UK pensionist and you come to live in Spain, you will still receive your pension. That won't change, but you will pay taxes in Spain for that pension and for all the incomes that you receive. So there's no problem. You can receive your pension in Spain. You can receive it in your UK bank account or in your Spanish bank account, but you have to communicate that pension to the tax revenue. Even though if you don't do it, the tax revenue will know that you are receiving a pension in Spain, and therefore you have to pay tax for that.
Okay, fantastic. And prior to pension age, does Brexit change the amount of tax you pay, both as an individual and as a business? These are big questions. Sorry, Lauren.
Well, that is a question. That question we've asked the UK embassy representatives many times, and they are receiving that question almost every day, and they are replying, we don't know. So that is the reply that we have to provide, we don't know. At the moment, what we can say is that if there is a Brexit with an agreement between the UK and Spain, and they decide that Brits are considered and treated as EU citizens, the tax will not change. If there is a hard Brexit, then the tax will change, as UK citizens will be considered non-EU, and then they will pay taxes as non-EU citizens.
And am I right in saying those taxes as non-EU citizens are quite substantially higher?
They are higher, yes. You pay more taxes for your property. When you sell your property, you also pay more taxes. They are higher, yes.
Okay,
it's something to consider.
And that's something to still pay attention to then, basically. That's still a grey area that we don't know yet what the British government have said. So that is something that people still need to listen out for.
Yes, that's something you have to think about. If you are considering moving to Spain, purchasing a property or selling a property, it's something that you have to think about applying for residency before Brexit, as things may change and then you may have to pay more taxes. But that is the only difference, the taxes.
But it might actually end up being quite a substantial saving in the long run. We just don't know yet. So I've got a question here from someone who owns property in the UK, but wants to be a resident in Spain. So with that UK-based property, does it change any of the taxes on that property?
Yes, it does. That person will have to pay taxes according to Spanish law. If you become a Spanish resident, you pay all your taxes in Spain. Therefore, that property will be part of your income, and you will have to pay taxes for that property in Spain. Now, when it comes to payment for tax payment, there's two types of tax. One that goes with the residency, and the other one goes with the property. All property-related taxes, those will be paid from the UK. Residency-related taxes will be paid from Spain.
Okay, so that's
the same. If the other way around, it's exactly the same. If you are a UK citizen, UK resident, and you have a property in Spain, you will pay the taxes for that property in Spain. That's the yearly tax payment that you pay to the local authorities. And your incomes will be paid from the UK.
Right, yeah, that makes sense. This one's from specifically a landlord in the UK. Does it change the legalities of how much rental income that person can have? Is that have I explained that? Sorry.
A Spanish resident that receives income, yeah, I understand now. That is a Spanish resident that has a property in the UK and who is renting that property.
Exactly.
He will have to pay taxes in Spain for those incomes that come from the UK property.
Okay, fine. So it changes the taxes, but it doesn't. Right. Okay, I think that's answered that question. Here's one about healthcare, which actually was a really popular topic. If you have residency in Spain, are you still covered by the NHS in the UK because you're a UK citizen? If not, is there an equivalent in Spain that they would be covered on? How does healthcare work with residency?
Right. If you apply for Spanish residency, then you are covered by Spanish National Health System. If you are not covered by the National Health System in Spain, you are covered by a private insurance. Therefore, as you are no longer a UK resident, you are not covered by National Health System in the UK, only in case of emergencies. Once you go back to UK, then you will have access to National Health System again, if you go back.
Yeah, fair enough. And so if then that sort of starts thinking about private healthcare, do you offer advice on that? Is it common that people not sure where to look?
Yes, we always recommend that if you are coming to live to Spain, you can have the public health system, which is very good, but we also advise that you take a private insurance just because it's faster to see your GP or to go to a dermatologist. Things that are not urgent are much faster with the private health insurance. We provide advice regarding health insurance and any insurance that you may need.
Am I right in thinking that there are certain industries within healthcare that are not great on the public system, but that move much faster on the private system, and vice versa, that you can use the public system for some issues and you'll be absolutely fine?
A private system works very fast and very well in all sectors. In Spain, you have everyone. You know, the system in Spain is universal, so anyone has access to public health system. That's why the system is a bit collapsed, especially if it's not urgent things, those are collapsed. That's why we always consider it's a better option to have both. You can choose. If you apply for an appointment at your national health system and 2 or 3 months after you haven't received an appointment yet, go to the private one, because you will be advised in 2 or 3 weeks. So it's always better to have both. If you don't want to apply for private health insurance, you have the public health insurance.
Yeah, that makes sense to me. I was going to ask about families who were applying for residency, because there are obviously different setups for different families, but do you do each individual child's application separately, or do you put it all through as one family?
If you're going to apply all the family together, it's better to do it all at the same time, and much easier and cost effective. If what you're going to do is one of the family members is going to come first to Spain and then the kids are coming, it's better to apply for residency first and then apply for the residency of the kids. There's a special system for that. That's what we call in Spain family union. It's very easy to apply for that because one of the family members already is a Spanish resident.
Yeah, fantastic. That makes sense. And I had some questions about driving licenses and how that fits in with the residency application. Do you need a Spanish driving license? I'm going to presume the answer is yes. You can't use your UK license. And how does that work? Do you have to have residency before you can apply for your Spanish driving license?
Well, this is not only Spanish driving license, it's cars and driving license. If you're going to live in Spain, then your car and your driving license has to comply with the Spanish requirements. It's just bureaucratic forms that you have to fill in. You have to register your car in the tax office, and you have to pay a small tax for that. And then you have to apply for your driving license to be legalized as a Spanish license. That's also bureaucracy. It's very easy to do for someone that's familiar with bureaucracy, but that has to be done once you are here in Spain. You don't have to do that before you come, because remember that as EU citizens, you can be in Spain 90 days before applying for residency. So you have all that time to prepare all the documents.
Mm-hmm. And do you think
there's no rush for that?
There's a lot of people in Spain at the moment who don't yet have residency? Because am I right in thinking the process is going to change at the end of this year when we leave the EU? It will become stricter? There will be more checks?
Yes, there are many Brits living in Spain in an irregular situation. If you stay in Spain more than 90 days and you don't apply for residency, then you are an irregular citizen. You are meant to pay your taxes in Spain, you're paying them in the UK. So the situation is irregular. No one is checking this at the moment because EU citizens, we can go from one country to another and no one is checking if when we enter a country, leave the country, no one checks that. Once Brexit is here, there will be more checks. So it will be easier to find these irregular citizens, and they may have big problems with the tax office and immigration.
Right, okay. And if you are someone at the moment living in an irregular situation, it's not going to feel taboo to now go and correct that. You are going to be able to ask for help. It's not, there's going to be no judgments, right? It's just a matter of people are kind of thinking about it slightly differently now.
No, you just have to apply for residency and that's it.
Yeah. What about different separate addresses? Because I know that there are people who may have addresses in Spain that they're not at very much at the moment, or they're traveling back and forth, which is very common with people that I talk to who've purchased property in Spain. So if you have a Spanish address, an English address, what are you going to write down on these forms? How can you make sure that, you know, that you're writing the correct thing?
Yes, that is a situation that brings many problems. If you have a property in Spain and you don't live permanently in that property, if you spend seasons abroad, you must provide an address that you will receive the letters. If you are not going to be here, you will not be receiving any letters from the tax office, from the national health system, utilities, bank, on any service provider. Therefore, you can have tax penalties, sanctions, you can have cancellation of service, your electricity could be cut off. That's why we always recommend our clients to provide our registered address as notification address. If you do not provide that address, the tax office is going to report any notification to your property in Spain. If you don't live there, they will send 2 notifications, and they will consider that you are notified, and then all the penalties come to place. They charge you interest, and that is not nice. It's something very easy to avoid. You just need to provide your solicitor's address as registration address to receive all those letters, and you can avoid a lot of problems.
Yeah.
That is a service that we provide. We have checked and we haven't found any other law firms that provide this service, but I'm sure that they do offer that personally to their clients. And it's something that you should consider if you have a property in Spain.
It's just useful to know that that's actually something that you can ask, because it's not something I would have thought of. It's actually a very kind service that your solicitor is saying, do you know what, send things here. But I would never have thought to ask that. So I think that's a great tip for people communicating with solicitors. Just see if that is an option. Well, my final question, just to put you on the spot, Lauren, is if there was one point about residency that you wanted people to take away today, or if there's a really common pitfall that you see when people are applying, what would that be? What's kind of the key message that you'd like to leave people with?
Yeah, well, our message is Brexit is going to happen, but you don't have to panic if you are not sure if you want to live in Spain or not. So just think about it, and if you make up your mind before Brexit, go for it. If you're not sure, then wait until you're prepared to move. Another issue that we recommend is the notification address. If you have a property in Spain, provide the tax office with an address where they can find you. And if you are in an irregular situation in Spain, don't panic, just inform about the situation and apply for residency. There's not going to be any penalties at the moment, but there could be penalties once Brexit is here if these are not considered anymore EU citizens.
And I think not hiding from the taxman is just good advice for life anyway. So I'll carry that one with me.
Yeah. 2 advices: don't hide from the taxman or from court procedures. Never, don't hide. Face the reality. And the other important thing is don't panic. Brexit is going to happen, but in the one situation, the UKs will be considered non-EU citizens, and there's a lot of Americans living here and they don't have any problem because of that. So just don't panic. Consider your personal situation, your family situation, and if you see yourself living in Spain, go for it.
Amazing. Well, thank you. We squeezed in a lot of questions there. Thank you so much for your time, Lauren, and to everyone at HN. I know you mentioned it earlier, but we're just going to pop your information on the screen now. Should anyone wish to get in touch with you, it's going to mean that they can call on your services, which I just think will be invaluable. And just having help in this, as you say, is going to be one of the key things. Just to touch on the 5 sort of main points that I picked up on. It's number 1, residency is mandatory. Number 2, enlist the help of professionals, preferably a solicitor, and legally registered professionals. So check out that they are who they say they are. Communication is really important. So stay in touch with the solicitor, stay in touch with the government. Number 3, your NIE number needs to come first. So that can happen whilst you're not in Spain if you're yet to move. So it's a really, really good first step. Number 4, as an individual, you'll pay taxes in the country that you live in. It's just a really good rule of thumb. Slightly different with properties, I know, but just think about where the property is. It's all about sort of the geography of where you are. Number 5, the deadline is December 31st, but it doesn't mean you can't apply for residency past that point. It's just going to mean that you're applying as a citizen outside of the UK, which changes things, increases tax, and may make things more expensive for you in the long run. So that is to summarize. It has been such an interesting conversation, Lauren. Thank you so much again. It's been lovely to chat to you. I'm going to hand back to Martin with some final goodbyes, but it was lovely talking to you, Lauren. Have a great day.
Thank you, Beth. That was wonderful. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Lauren and Beth, for a fascinating conversation. And thanks to each one of you for spending an hour of your time with us, 45 minutes anyway. Clearly, we couldn't cover every aspect of such a vast and complex subject in a single session, but I hope what you've gained is some clarity on deciding what the next kind of steps look like, and you've taken Lauren's single piece of advice to heart, which is don't panic. We'll be emailing you with an information pack with links to useful resources and a link to a recording of this webinar. So watch out in your email over the next couple of days. The pack will also contain details of how to get in touch with Lauren, details of our next webinar, and how we can help you between now and the end of December. So thanks again. Please check your email, and I hope to see you on our next webinar very soon. Bye.